An inmate going after the lone deputy.
The fight only lasted 30 seconds.
But Deputy Daniel Guzman will tell you it was the longest 30 seconds of his life, having to fight off Hayden Davis, in jail at the time for breaking into a Beaverton home.
There had been no history between us, good or bad, no disciplinary action.
What made me be a correctional officer? I got to tell you, most of it, I think it was because I grew up in a Christian household. I was sheltered for most of my life. I went to a Christian school from kindergarten to 8th grade, and I had to convince my mom and dad to get me into public school because all my friends that I used to see in church on Sundays were, talking about all the fights and all the exciting things that they got to see. And I'm like, I didn't get to see any of that. I had chapel, I had Bible class. I don't see anything really exciting in my Christian school, but they were just making it seem like it was so fun. I needed to be a part of it. So I convinced my mom and dad, I gotta go. I gotta go to a public school. Well, the interesting about going to a public school is that when you come full blown from a Christian school and then you transition right to high school, it's a pretty big jump. I got teased a lot. I got called Carlton. I got called white boy. I got called, Oreo. I got called all this stuff because my fashion. I didn't know fashion was huge in high school, right? I mean, I wore Dockers and I wore corduroys. Do you remember that? Remember when you would go to school and you would lay out your clothes on the bed, thinking you're fresh? That's what I did, but I was corduroys and Dockers. You know what I mean? I thought that was cool, and everybody made fun of me. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I gotta acclimate myself. But I didn't really have that violent, I didn't really get to see that much stuff until I went to high school. So I think when I finally moved to Arizona, that was when I, kind of wanted a taste. I moved out there to be acting, but obviously that didn't work out. So what I wanted to do, I really wanted to get into law enforcement, and I started looking up, police stuff, and I started looking up, correctional officer, and I started looking at YouTube. I'm like, man, this seems fun. Kind of seeing the excitement of being around an inmate and prisoner and all this stuff. It seemed fun to me. I was 27, young, a lot more muscular. I was like, no, nothing can harm me, right? So I remember I signed up and I went to the academy, passed the background and all that stuff. And I went to the academy. It was in Tucson, Arizona. And it was a 7-week course. And back then it was, you have the sergeants, you have to say the Pledge of Allegiance by the flagpole. And I thought it was just so cool. Early in the morning, you'd be woken up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And you're, oh my gosh, and everybody's grabbing their clothes and running to the flagpole, and you had to be there within a certain amount of time. It was so much fun. And then, kind of being around that military type of structure, I didn't know how to properly, tuck my sheets in and do anything like that. So I'm, of course, when the sergeants are yelling at you to make up your bag, you're making up your bag real quick. He's like, Henderson, what the heck is that? And he's just stowing your sheets and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. This is amazing. I've never experienced anything like this. Oh my gosh. The academy was fun. Week 5, I'll let you know about week 5. Week 5 was the point in time where the sergeant will let you know that most of the time you have a lot of your classmates drop out. And the reason why is because in week 5, you actually have to go to the yard you're at. So one of the first things that, when you're in class and the sergeant's talking to you and he's overseeing the class, he kind of wants to introduce yourself and you talk about yourself and what prison you're going to. So I was going to a prison called Lewis, and I wanted to go to like the biggest, baddest prison in Arizona, right? What's the baddest prison in Arizona? Some might say Tucson, some might say Yuma. I wanted to go to Lewis. It was kind of, hour by my house, but I wanted to go to Lewis. Most of the yards names, we had Buckley, we had Rass, we had Maury. Most of those yards names were named off of officers who had passed away in the line of duty. So I'm like, oh, this has got to be it. This has got to be the prison for me. And those officers that lost their lives in the line of duty, I'm thinking in my head, I owe them. I don't know why something was telling me this, but I owe them to make sure they're lost their lives in the line of duty. I got to make sure that the other officers there are safe. And I'm going to put all this burden on my back. I want to try to make sure that every officer goes home safe for this person who lost their life. So I didn't know right off the bat when people were talking about the prison that they're going to. I never heard of what's called Perryville. So when the sergeant was asking all of us, what prison are you going to? What prison are you going to? What prison are you going to? This one guy said, hey, I'm going to Perryville. And everybody starts laughing. I'm like, Perryville? What's so funny about Perryville? A man going to Perryville? What is so funny about Perryville? Well, Perryville was the women's prison. And I'm thinking in my way, I'm going to like a tough prison. And this kid's going to a woman's prison? What is wrong with this dude? Wouldn't you want to jump in and see all the action and the excitement? That's not a lot of officers. And I'll explain that more later on in the story, but you can find yourself in a very bad position in prison if you're around officers who don't have the same mentality. Okay? If you don't have the same mentality as all the other officers you're working with, and these other officers have families or, wife and married, and they're just trying to do their 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours and leave, and you have that mentality of, I want to mess things up today. I want to search cells. I want to do this. I want to find some stuff. You got to make sure you surround yourself with the right officers. Okay. So I remember when I got to week 5 and I'm excited, I'm going on the yard. I get to see the yard for the first time. I get to see the other officers. I get to see inmates for the first time in my life. I get to see these criminals, right? I get to see these inmates, experience what it's like to be around these people. Because again, week 5, this is the next week 6, you expect, half your class to be gone because they just didn't want to be surrounded by inmates. They think it's different when you're watching a YouTube video and then when you're actually on the yard. It's very different. It's completely different. I mean, you literally have no room for error because at any point in time in prison, if you are not careful, something can happen to you, especially if you're an officer, especially if you're disrespectful. Now, again, you have to think, when you're in prison and you're an officer, you don't walk around with guns. You can't do that because you obviously you can't have anybody take it from you. You have your holster, you have your handcuffs, and you have your pepper spray. That's it. You have your gloves, you have your little med kit just in case someone is overdosing, stuff like that. But the only weapon that you actually have, is your pepper spray. So week 5, we go to the pod, and there's a red side and a blue side, and it was broken off by A and B side and C and D side. So each A, B, C, and D had 25 cells, and in one cell there was 2 people, so 50 people on one side. So you would bring up 100 people up to the chow hall at one time. Now, you're around, on week 5, it was like, me and I want to say like 4 other officers in training, had a couple sergeants, so it was a lot of officers. It's normally not like that. It is normally not like that. Normally, when you're actually on a yard and you're walking, a whole pod up to the chow hall, you're probably with like 2 or 3 officers, at most 2 or 3 officers. So it's a lot different. But one of the reasons why they said that a lot of people are going to fall off in week 5 was because once that door, most of the doors are metal, once that door closes and all the inmates are in the chow hall and they're all sitting down, they close all the doors behind you, and they're very heavy metal doors. And once you hear that boom, they're like, oh geez, oh crap. Now you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is it. This is the feeling of it. You know what I mean? Because you're almost like in this cage. You're trapped with all these people who have done all these crimes, and you don't know where to move. So it is a little nerve wracking. It's very different. The first time you experience that feeling, it's very different. I myself, I was kind of excited, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, I kind of see what these people are talking about, because at any point in time, they could just rush you and attack you, right? Now, most of those inmates aren't trying to do that because they have visits, they have so many things that be taken away from them, so they're not really trying to do that unless you're disrespectful. That goes back to my point of you being disrespectful, and you have to watch what you say and how you say it. So I love that portion of it, being around that environment, being surrounded by those inmates. I don't know what it was, but it's like a thrill. It was like skydiving. It was just like a thrill. I just needed that adrenaline rush, right? So I go back week 6, back up to Tucson, and sure enough, there was maybe 8 people that didn't show up. Now, there wasn't just from my prison. It was, Tucson and Yuma and all these other prisons. So I get it, but it was definitely a drop. Now, the fun thing about the Correctional Academy is that you have to experience the thing that you're going to use on an inmate. Now, I thought it was fun that, okay, cool. What I mean by that is pepper spray, CS gas, and getting tased, you know? I had never been tased before. I had never been pepper sprayed. I had never been CS gas. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I kind of want to see what this is like. And I don't know, honestly, which one was worse. Which one was worse, getting tased, going through CS gas, or getting pepper sprayed? Each one of them are brutal. I don't know what it was. Like getting tased, getting that, especially when you have a lot of muscle, it just locks you up. Like you can't do anything. It says they're only supposed to do it for like 5 seconds, like the 5-second ride of hell. It's horrible, you know. But once you're done, you're just like no more pain. Like it's gone. You're like, oh my gosh, thank God. You know, CS gas is literally, you know, we're all on the line, and he breaks us up in different rows, and he pops the CS gas, and you're like, easy, duh, I'm just gonna hold my breath. It's not getting in my body. Nope. So once he starts popping the gas, he says, all right, guys, walk. And you start walking, and then he'll say, stop. And you're like right in the middle of it. You're like, oh gosh. And then you're like, oh, I'm just trying to hold my breath. And you're just, and then as soon as it gets in your lungs, you're like, oh my God. You just drop. It's like a punch in the gut, CS gas. It hurts. It hurts you, you know? And pepper spray is brutal, because when I got pepper spray for the first time, it took me, I'm not kidding you, it took me 9 hours to feel okay afterwards, just because, you know, once it gets all on your eyes and on your skin, and your first thing you want to do is you want to wipe it off. Right now it's on your hands, you know? So a lot of the things that they say is, luckily I had a great squad, and I had a great sergeant tell us, you know, don't get naked and don't shower like that. I mean, get naked and completely take your pants off, because what's going to happen is that you're going to start taking a shower, and you're going to start freaking out, and you're going to start doing all this stuff, and it's going to start washing down your face and start washing down your body. It's going to go down your private parts. You're like, ah! You got to be very careful, okay? You're supposed to use, you know, like Dawn dish soap, get on your face, scrub, and it takes a long time to get it off your actual skin, you know? But the reason why they put you through this is because they want you to experience what it's going to be like when you do that to an inmate, okay? So would you want to get tased longer than 5 seconds? Would you want to get pepper spray longer than that burst of shh? And now that inmates have to go through that, right? So once you pass all that and you graduate the academy, you go on your, this is the exciting thing, okay? Now you're actually on the yard. Now you actually get to meet the people that you're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis. And that was, for me, I thought it was the most fun part, because I'm like, okay, I get to be around a family. So let's just say I go to Officer Hernandez again, and this inmate says, hey, you know, about our conversation, I know we really couldn't finish it, but why don't we talk about a little bit more? You know, all you have to do, maybe bring me a little something.